Uh, we're going to start now. Welcome everybody. Joya Goodrum here with the McMinnville Chamber. We are here with another of our webinars, our Business Support Series webinars. Today we have invited Brian Van Bergen with Yamaha County. Here's our county clerk, and he is going to talk to us about safe, secure, and accessible elections and what else. I guess there will be other things he might be sharing with us. I'm going to turn it over to you, Brian, and I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate the time. How much time do I have, by the way?
We blocked an hour for you, but you take as much time as you want.
Okay, very good. And just a presentation check. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Very good. So we do want to cover a few things today, trying to hit the highlights of what most people are concerned with, what they're hearing in the media, what they're hearing from friends. Talking a little bit about where we are locally, where we are as county clerk's office in particular, and trying to answer some folks' questions that are pertinent, not only today, but moving forward. So there are some things that are new in 2020. You know, we've had the global pandemic, we have had fires, and yes, when I came back from the post office the other day, there was a locust in our parking lot. So there's the plagues are coming. So it's 2020. It's things to consider. And by way of recapping who we are, what we do, the Yamhill County Clerk's Office is primarily a weird conglomeration of things. We are the public records keeper for the county, so that for most people that means we are the office that records the deeds, mortgages, anything related to property records, and military discharge documents. So if you have someone serving that is recently discharged, they can come record their discharge documents in our office for free, and they can always come back and get a certified copy of that. That's super important for people as they go through life, and they need a certified copy of their discharge documents for regular insurance as well as the VA and other things too. So one thing to keep in mind, we do those things, and for service members for free. We do a lot of our work now electronically, where folks don't actually physically have to be in our office. E-recording is a big change that happened a couple of years ago. Saves people a lot of time, a lot of money, and lo and behold, it turns out that it's a great way of keeping business moving forward in a global pandemic. Primarily, it's taking your recording documents, whether you're refinancing your home, buying a new home, putting a lien on a person or a piece of property, and recording that in our office electronically. Another thing that we do in our office is conducting the annual Board of Property Tax Appeals. Our office serves as the or is the unbiased or administrative team that gets the property owner and the assessment and taxation office together in a room, and they talk about the value of a particular piece of property. And I wanted to bring that up today because we need more BOPTA board members. So we are on the lookout for someone with some real estate experience, or perhaps some title company experience, a builder or developer, someone that knows something about property values in the county. It's a weird combination of things. And it's a small pool of people because they can't also be an elected official. They can't be working for a city or jurisdiction. So they can't be a school board member. They can't be a teacher. They can't be a paid firefighter. So there's a limitation to what you have to do and what you can't do in order to be a BOPTA board member. And that is all concerned about the value of a person's property. And right around the corner from today, we should, all those of us that have property in Yamhill County will be getting our property tax statements. It's a big deal because the value of your property is where your property taxes are based from. So you look at a piece of property in Yamhill County, you look at your tax statement and you should see a bunch of things on your property tax statement that lo and behold have something to do with elections. So property taxes and your tax statements are coming from a different department completely, but my ballot that I send to you should correspond to that property tax statement. So if you see something, if you have a piece of property here you're living in McMinnville, you should see things like McMinnville School District on your property tax statement. And then lo and behold, when you get a ballot, you should see McMinnville property or McMinnville School District things on your ballot. So those things should match. And that is a key component of relationships between departments in the Yamhill County, but it's one of those things that confuses a lot of people where they go to do what. One of the things we try to remind people is where do those property taxes go? What do they do? And who decides how those monies are spent? And then what we'd like to do is go back to that concept after a bit if we have time. But what we want you to know right now is that our ballots from your clerk's office will be mailed out locally on the 14th of October, and your property tax statements should be hitting the mail the week after that. So that's one little tidbit that we should all keep on our calendars. So if you're a registered voter in Yamhill County, you should be watching for your ballot about that time, and then you should be watching for your good news from your friendly local tax office. Back to things that we do here in our office. We normally are the one and only place in Yamhill County that accepts and processes passport applications all day, every day, but we're not doing that through the COVID the summer of 2020. We will likely resume those services in December after our election process is over. So those of you that want to update, to apply, to do passport applications, please come back to our office in December when we should be rolling those things out again. Those of you that have been around McMinnville forever and always might remember that Shutterbug used to be downtown. That they used to take great passport photos, but they closed down their McMinnville store a number of years ago, and that's when we started to do passport photos. That too, we will resume later on, December, January, but for now, we recommend people to head over to Walmart or Costco because they're doing great passport photos. If you know someone that needs a passport right away, we're recommending people to go to the Dundee or Dallas post offices. So those are two things you want to keep in mind. Back to elections. We all know, or a lot of people know, that elections are local. Here in Oregon, unlike some states, every election comes through the county clerk's office. So whether you're voting on the city of Amity's mayor, whether you're voting on president of the United States or McMinnville city councilor, all of those different contests come through and are administered by the county clerk's office. So in Oregon, that's a little different. So someone that's moving to McMinnville or Oregon will wonder why they don't have a ballot coming from the city and another one coming from the state. In Oregon, we lump them all together. We have a schedule, we have a calendar, and all jurisdictions follow that same calendar, and they come through us. Since we are that hub, we are always on the lookout for new election board workers. The election board workers in Oregon are paid. If you're touching a ballot, you're paid. You don't volunteer to help during elections and touch a ballot. It's one of those things that people don't understand very well, but it's a concept that's not unique to Oregon, but it's one of the things that separates us from some of the others. So it's then we have two other criteria. So we have election board workers and we have folks that work our drop boxes. Election board workers are the folks that check signatures. They slice open that ballot envelope that comes back with the ballot inside, they extract the contents and do all the things that touch those ballots. The drop box teams are sometimes different, sometimes included, but in general, we pay those people too that go to drop boxes and pick up ballots between the day we open the boxes and election day. And then that role changes to the one and only set of true volunteers that we have. And those volunteers are at each drop box in teams of at least 2 humans from differing political parties, and they are at each box, each of our 15 boxes at 8 p.m. to close those boxes. So at 8 p.m. in Oregon, those drop boxes are in essence little baby polling places. So that takes the place of you going to your polling place and voting. At 8 p.m., we're closing the polls. In Oregon, that's a drop box. So we have a team of people to close up that box, lock it tight so ballots can't get in after the fact. Then they bring all those ballots directly back here. Questions so far? Yes.
I have a question. So how does one become an election? Are you going to talk about that? Is that coming up right next? Not a volunteer, but a paid person to do that. How do you become qualified?
The best way to do that is to shoot some very brief information to our generic elections email address. So on our office's website, up at the upper right-hand corner of the contact side is our address, our phone number, and 2 of our email addresses. Someone that wants to help should shoot an email to elections@co.yamhill.or.us. It's also copied there, so you don't need to write it down right now. If you want to help as a BOPTA board member or one of the other things, if you have generic questions about passports and that kind of thing, clerk@ is the differentiator there. So those are 2 ways of getting in touch with us. We do go through background checks. We go through an onboarding process just like we would hire anyone else. So it's a lengthy process, not too terribly cumbersome, because most of the folks that serve as our election board workers are retirees. So it's a little different process than onboarding for a full-time position, but it's similar in many respects. So it's one of those things that there are steps and hoops that you have to go through. We do want folks to get very familiar with our website. Lots of content on our website. We try to keep that updated all the time. That's one of those things that we try to push people to get their answers, because so many people have the same question. We try to get as many of the common questions answered as we can, but we are including in the ballot packets that are heading out here in a few weeks a buck slip that includes some additional information. So included on the little buck slip that will appear with people's ballots from Yamhill County are some direct links to 4 different websites or tools that we want people to be aware of. One of the links is to our county clerk's website. That's where you can go to get information about the election, to see a digital copy of our voter pamphlet, to get an absentee ballot request form. If you're moving out of state, there's a cancel my voter registration form. There's all sorts of things on our website that we want people to get used to. The next bit of information that we want every voter in Oregon to know and love is the My Vote application on the Secretary of State's website. The My Vote application is where you want to go a month before every election. Each voter in Oregon, super quick, super easy to jump in and say your voter registration status today. So if you want to check your party registration, if you want to check to make sure that I have your exact address with the exact direction, whether you live at 414 North or 414 South Evans, check that. Make sure we've got the right information for you. That is also where you can go to see that we've accepted your ballot after the fact. So a month before, voters should go in and check their status to make sure everything's accurate. After you've sent us your ballot, give us a couple days and look back there at the bottom of that page. You're going to see Fred Flintstone at Bedrock Inc. And at the bottom of the page is going to say ballot accepted. It's a great tool for people to just get that extra bit of confirmation that we did get your ballot, your signature's okay, and all that. The third link that we're trying to get people used to is a relatively new service from the post office. So the post office offers a daily update of the mail coming to your mailbox. So you chime in to the post office's informed delivery program, and they're going to take scans of each of the pieces of mail that are coming to your particular mailbox. It's great for every day, but we want people to get used to this, especially around elections, for those people that don't check their mail every day. So if you get a little email pop up from the post office saying, hey, there's a picture of my ballot envelope, I better go check my mail for the first time this month. It's a great little tool to remind folks of what's coming in the mailbox. It's not our service, it's for the post office, but it's a great tool for people. And the fourth thing is Ballot Tracks. That is a tool that we're using that sends a message to each voter that signs up, and it's the voter's choice whether you get an email, a text message, or a phone call when we mail out ballots. And then when the voter mails back their voted ballot to us, the voter will get a hey, your ballot's been accepted message if your signatures match, or hey, there's a problem with your ballot if the signatures don't match. And those notices head out within 24, 48 hours after we get your ballot back in our building. So it's a very quick and easy way for people to get that extra bit of confirmation that their ballot got it back to us, and hey, it's great, or hey, not so good, the signatures don't match. And in Oregon, people need to remember that they have 14 days after each election to cure their signature problem and still get their votes counted. So it's a different thing in every state. So if you're new to the state of Oregon, remember that you have 14 days after the election. So if you vote and give us your ballot 2 weeks before the election and there's a signature problem, you almost have a month to cure your signature issue. So don't wait. It's 2020. Don't wait. The locusts are coming, I tell you. So the My Vote application at the Secretary of State's website, something that every Oregonian should get used to. Jump on to secretaryofstate.com, yada, yada. The easiest email address, or the easiest website address to remember, is oregonvotes.gov. All Oregonians should know oregonvotes.gov. That'll take you to their My Vote application, and there's a registration side and an update side. So the My Vote application is where most of our citizens will jump to check their registration or update or see what's happening. So these are some little splash images of what that page looks like, and you'll see a little thumbnail that says register to vote, or the My Vote application. So follow those links, and it does look a little different if you're on a PC on your desktop, or if you're on your phone or a tablet. So each one of those screen sizes makes these images look a little different. So be aware of that when you're jumping in here, that it may not look exactly like this on this screen, but those buttons are the buttons you'll look for. Questions so far? So far, so good. So what makes elections in Oregon a little different? One thing is that anyone that's voted in Oregon for more than 3 days will know that we do not have long lines. You don't find pictures in Oregon of voters down blocks and blocks waiting to get into their polling place. There's reasons for that. So we'll navigate around front of some of those reasons, but there's a couple of key points that we want everyone in Oregon to be aware of. Is that our database, the voter registration database, is clean and updated, and it's shared across all counties. It's a statewide voter registration database. Each voter's registration is matched with either a DMV number or a Social Security number. The entire database is processed regularly through the post office's NCOA program. We're participating in the ERIC program, and offices get updates from health departments, Social Security, and our office in particular subscribes to all of our local newspapers. So there's reasons for that too. So having a shared statewide voter registration database is critical for voters that move. Not so critical for folks that have lived in McMinnville for 40 years and will never move, but super great for people that move from McMinnville to Eugene to go to school, or to Baker City to go to work, or whatever. In Oregon, a voter from Yamhill County can move from Yamhill County to Marion County on election day and get their registration updated without any issue. Because we're all linked, we have that shared database. All of your signatures from the last 50 years of living and voting in Yamhill County get ported over and then get accessed by the Marion County Elections Office. That's one of the reasons why our system is so much farther down the road than some of these states that just started mail-in voting this year. So some of the states that had problems with absentee or mail-in voting this year just started this year. Super hard to get a clean statewide voter registration database in 1 year. Just doesn't happen. But like we talked about just before everyone chimed in, is Oregon's been doing this over 20 years. You know, we've made mistakes, we've made improvements. We're not perfect yet, but we're getting better. So when people register to vote in Oregon, almost everyone coming into Oregon now is registering to vote at the DMV. In the United States, in order to vote for federal contests, you have to be a citizen. So that voter registration can either be matched with a DMV number after the DMV office has checked the citizen's registration, or the citizen's place in whether they are an Oregon citizen or whatever, however they got here. Then if someone doesn't have an Oregon driver's license, which is super important this year because DMV has been offices have been closed for so long, you can still fall back on the social security number. So if you know someone that's just moved to Oregon, is trying to register to vote, if they can't get to DMV, they shouldn't panic. They should just take the next step and register using their social security number. So here in Yamhill County, we have over 70,000 registered voters, and we constantly work those registration records, whether they move from McMinnville or Newburgh, they change their name, they get married or whatever. We're making constant changes and updates, and if someone registers to vote and they didn't provide us with a Oregon driver's license or a matching social security number, we're in contact with those people. So we get them into the bucket, but they can't vote on federal contests until they give us a matching social security number or proof that they're citizens. At this moment, we only have 4 people in that status. So of our 72,000 registered voters in Yamhill County, only 4 people right now have not given us a matching confirmation that they're citizens. So a lot of people will complain that there's fraud and there's people that are voting that aren't citizens. Not true in Oregon. Just know that outright. There's many things that you'll hear where there's a shred of truth, but like many things, the truth is a little cleaner than people present. One thing that makes our process smoother, better, more accurate is the statewide voter registration database is compared with the post office's database 9 or 10 times every year, depending on how many elections we've got going. So 9 to 10 times every year, our registration database is checked to make sure that that person didn't move. Or if they did move, we get that updated address from the post office. We update that person's registration for them. If they didn't tell us, we send them a notification card. In addition to that, from the post office, Oregon is participating with 30 other states to compare full state registration databases. So if you moved to Texas and forgot to tell us, the Secretary of State's office from Texas compares their data with ours, and we get that updated. So it's not perfect because not all 50 states are playing in the pool yet, but it's getting better every year as more people chime into that process. We also try very hard to keep dead people from voting. Also a big fraud complaint that dead people are voting across the country, yada, yada, yada. Also not true in Oregon, but it is a constant process that we go through, not only to eliminate the fraud of someone actually trying to vote for a dead person, but just that emotional heartache from someone getting a ballot for their spouse that just passed away. So it's one of those things that it's something that we try aggressively to do to keep our voter registration rolls up to date, but it's also something that we need each citizen to participate in. It's not magic that we just automatically know that someone passed away. We actually have to physically hear from someone that someone passed away. The funeral homes don't have a direct connection to our office to tell us that someone passed away. What we are told is from health departments. The county health department, state health department give us notices periodically, and periodically we get information from the Social Security Administration. But we take one step further. We actually subscribe to the local newspapers just to read the obituaries. So we try to get those folks cured before, cured's the wrong word, sorry about that. We try to update the registration to their new status before their spouse has to. But it also is incumbent upon those humans that know of a problem in our database to tell us. So if you know of a problem in our database and don't tell us, you are part of the problem. If you know that you've been getting a ballot for someone that's been passed away for 10 years and you don't tell us, you are part of the problem. If you see someone on Facebook saying, I've got this ballot for this dead person for 10 years in a row, and they didn't tell us, they are part of the problem. So we ask everyone to do your bit. If you get a ballot in your mailbox that's for someone that is no longer with us, please just write on the outside deceased and send it back to us. It doesn't get super complicated. We don't need to know why. Please don't tell us why. Just say deceased and send it back. And yes, we check every signature. So one of the reasons that our process is so secure, and one of the reasons why so few people, dead people, vote, is we are checking the signature on the outside of every envelope that comes back with the voter registration database. So if Fred Flintstone really did die 10,000 years ago, good chance that the person trying to match a signature today won't match. So if we get his ballot back with someone else's signature, we're probably going to catch that. And we have hundreds of envelopes every election cycle where the signatures don't match. And we have 3 basic reasons why those don't. There's an unfortunately large number of people that forget to sign their ballot envelope, and I can't match it if there's nothing there. So we send a quick postcard to those folks, give them an opportunity to sign and get their ballot moving through the process. Another bit that we send somewhere between 400 and 600 letters every election cycle to voters who we think that's really them, but their signature seems to be changing. Like they used to say, they used to write Holly Flintstone, but are now saying H Flintstone. It's those types of things that we try to catch and help people improve the process so that the next step doesn't happen to them. And the next step is where we don't think that signature matches at all. So we're going to send a piece of correspondence to that voter saying, we don't think this is you. Please bring us a new updated signature card with your new registration, and we'll compare. And we keep all of those. We keep the old Holly Flintstone, we keep the H Flintstone, all those versions of registration cards so we can do that cross-check. But we don't open those ballot packets until those things have been confirmed. So that's one of the things that we think makes elections in Oregon better than a polling place. We'd like to mention that at a polling place, a bad actor only has to fool the poll worker. In Oregon, You have to fool someone at the DMV, you have to fool someone at the Secretary of State's office, you have to fool someone at the post office, you have to fool something at our office, and then that cycle repeats because we check that voter registration database against the post office's database so many times. If the post office says, hey, Fred Flintstone doesn't live here anymore, that becomes an inactive voter. So Secretary of State's office sends out correspondence after someone becomes a new registered voter. We send out correspondence after they become a new registered voter. There's all sorts of checks and balances that happen before every election to make sure that our rolls are up to date. And then before I dive into some of the ins and outs of the internal mechanisms, do any of you have any questions?
I've got a question. So you were talking about, valid voting and that sort of thing. Have you ever had to prosecute anybody for voting knowingly for a dead person or for somebody that doesn't live here?
I'm not at liberty to discuss the individual, but we did have a voter from Yamhill County, part of the last federal election cycle, that we know voted both in Oregon and Washington. So that litigation is not yet complete, but we believe that person will either be paying a fine or some jail time or a combination of. Yeah, so don't do it. Many times, Fred signing Wilma's ballot is a mistake, and we can make that an educational experience for them without taking them to court and all that jazz. So there is that bit of flexibility that we have if we gather from the communication that it was truly a mistake. But those folks that we believe attempted to commit fraud do get prosecuted. So yeah, don't do it. And speaking of social media and things that you hear on outside of this office, never, ever attempt to vote twice in the same election. It is against the law. Don't do it because you will likely get caught. In Oregon, one of your ballots may count, but your other ballot will not count, and we'll try to get to that in a second. But it is never okay to attempt to vote twice. One of the benefits of having a statewide voter registration database is if Fred Flintstone votes and casts their ballot here in Yamhill County, then tries to vote again in the same election in Pendleton, they will get caught, and that second ballot will not get processed. So getting down to the nitty-gritty and the details, I wanted to let you all know why it takes so long to get results. So ballots that have been voted, you've had them on your kitchen table, everyone in the family's huddled around, made their choices, get their ballots back in the envelope, signed them with everyone signing the right envelope, and back either in the mail or in one of our drop boxes or here in our lobby. When those ballots get back in our building, the first thing that we do is a human faces all of those outer envelopes the same way. So the top of the envelope is facing the same direction in a tray. And then a human is grabbing literally a handful of those envelopes, and that handful of envelopes becomes a batch. And that batch of envelopes hang together through the rest of the process. So at that point, we know that we have about 30. That's about how many envelopes fit in a human hand. 50 if they're scrunched in a small election. So it's somewhere in that realm. And then we date a sheet of paper that goes along with that. So at that point in our process, we know that we've somewhere between 30 and 50 ballots. They arrived on the 23rd of September, and we mark where they came from. So if we got them from the Dundee post office, we got them from that. So that little batch has that little set of information going along with it. The next step is a human scans the barcode on the outside of that envelope. And that barcode that's on the outside of the envelope brings up Fred Flintstone's voter registration card. So that envelope that you see and that voter registration card are matched side by side. So a human is actually looking at the signature that was just written at the kitchen table against the most recent registration card we have on file. We'll go through that little batch, and then we'll see, okay, this one doesn't have a signature. That one takes a different path, and the rest of them move along the process. That report that we print out at that point is what I call a software confirmation of how many ballots are then in that batch of ballots. So I got 30, one got kicked out. I now have 29 matching envelopes with matching content that can move forward. The next step in our process is just slitting open the outside envelope, nothing else. So we're not taking anything out. We're not checking how that person voted. We're just using a machine to slice open the outside of that envelope. And lo and behold, that machine has a counter on it. So we slice open the envelopes and the machine says, hey, there's 29 things here that I just opened. So we now have a mechanical count that is confirming the software count of envelopes in that batch. So at that point, we move that bucket forward to the next step. The next step in the process is what we've been calling ballot processing. And that's where 2 humans, at least, if not 3, from different political parties, then take the contents out of those envelopes. So at this point, we now know that 29 envelopes are in front of them. We don't know yet what's inside those envelopes. We only know who sent those envelopes in, when they got here, and where they came from. And we know that there should be 29 of them. They will separate the contents and then separate the contents further. So most of these teams will have a stack of the outer envelopes. They should have 29 of those outer envelopes. Most voters use a secrecy sleeve, but not all voters. So there's at least, or there should be no more than 29 sleeves, and then there should be 29 ballots. At that point, there's just stacks of paper, and they will be zip tying those outer envelopes, zip tying the secrecies, and then after they move those envelopes out of the way, then they flatten those ballots. So at this point, we know that there are 39 ballot packets in front of them, 29 ballot packets. We know how many envelopes there were, and we know who those envelopes belong to, but we have no way of knowing which ballot belongs to which human. There is no personal identifiable information on any of those ballots unless Fred Flintstone wrote his name on that ballot. So don't do that. Those things end up as flat stacks of ballots. So far so good. At that point, we now have a human count of the ballots, a machine count from the machine that opened them, and then the software count. So at this point, we have a combination of humans looking, machines looking, and software confirming that we have an accurate number. So we have a stack of envelopes with people's signatures and personal information on them. They get zip tied and sent in one direction for archive. We have secrecies that are the same thing for every election, no personal identifiable information. They do get zip tied, but get put in another box. And then the flattened out ballots go a different direction. Now we do zip ties for a couple of reasons. The zip ties keep those bundles together, but it also gives both the workers and anyone watching in the room quick notice that there's nothing left in any of those. So there's no stray ballots, there's no stray envelopes stuck in there. So it's a quick way for both the people working those ballots and anyone watching that there's no stray ballots left in there. So the ballots then go on to the next step. So any questions so far? So far, so good. How long do you think that takes?
Forever. That is so much work. Oh my God.
And that is why it takes so long to get results.
Right.
So in Yamhill County, it's really similar from county to county, but we see on average 30% of our voters vote on election day. So a lot of that work has to be done that day. Those ballots that we get from out of country voters or military voters or folks that were out of state, we start getting trickled in a couple of weeks before, and we can start checking those signatures, and we can see that someone didn't sign, so we can send notices out to those folks and get those things cured before that date. But a lot of that stuff has to wait until they're actually there in the building, and we can't slice open that envelope until the week before the election. So there's things that we can do in the 2 weeks leading up to, and then we can start doing more things, but we can't do anything until those ballots are back in our building. So far, so good. So at that point, the things with humans' information on them go one way. They're going to archive, set in a different direction. And that was all set and confirmed by software. The things with your choices on them, your ballots, go in a completely different direction when there's no personal identifiable information on there. So if you vote for Fred Flintstone on the write-in vote last year, I have no way of knowing that you did that to me. So you're okay doing that. I'll never know unless you sign your name. So don't do that either. So those go a different direction. So a completely different set of computers and scanners get involved with the next step. The next step is taking those stacks of ballots and running those through scanners. We don't make any marks on a voter's ballot. When we are trying to decide whether or not you voted for Fred or Barney and you made all sorts of scribbles around there, we are doing that off of the scanned image of your ballot. We are not making adjustments on the ballot itself. We do make duplicate copies of ballots when you lay your bubble gum on it and I can't get the original ballot through the scanner. Or if you've torn your ballot and I can't get it through the scanner, we'll have a set of at least 2 humans make an exact duplicate of your ballot, and we'll make little stamp marks on both saying this was the original and this is the duplicate. We have 2 people confirm the choices are the same, yada yada, and then we scan those through. So that's a significant step in the process. So far, so good. So I wanted to hit on a few of the weird things going on in 2020 before I dive even deeper, in case more people need to bounce out. We've heard some really weird questions, and I want folks to know the answers to some of those weird questions in case they keep popping up on social media. One of the weird questions we've been hearing is that they, and you can insert the they into this bubble, they take our ballots and do things with them. The fact is, ballots stay here at our office for at least 2 years after the election. And we do that in Oregon so that if there's ever a question, we can go back to the original ballot and do a manual recount. And we actually do that after every federal election. After we certify, the state picks randomly 3 different contests and random sections, and they tell us after we've reported our results which ones to go back and do a manual recount of, so that we can prove that our results match the actual paper. And that we can have that done up to 2 years after. So if people tell you that those people are taking ballots, they're not. They never have in Oregon, and I hope they never will, because it's a great tool that we can rest on to go back to and confirm that what we've done is accurate. And then I've heard people question, well, some random people are going to be picking up those ballots in those drop boxes. And I honestly don't know where that's coming from. I don't know why people think that some random person has access to our drop boxes. They're not random. They are scheduled folks from our office. So we send them out with badges. We send them out with vests. We send them out with keys to get in to our drop boxes. What we don't do is we never tell anyone when. It's part of our security protocols. One of the reasons that we're so safe and secure is we don't tell people when and where we're going to and how frequently we get those ballots out. What I will tell you is that we know pretty closely how our voters behave. We know from years of experience how many people typically mail their ballots back the first day they get them, how many wait 5 days, how many wait 10 days, and how many do it on election day. People are creatures of habit. We know that, and we've become pretty good at gauging when we should go to each drop box, and each drop box is a little different. One of the things we talked about a minute ago also was going to a precinct, a particular precinct or polling place. You don't have to do that in Oregon. You don't have to go to the drop box that's closest to your house. If you live in McMinnville and work in Hillsborough, you can actually drop your box in a Washington County official ballot drop box. Washington County Elections sorts our ballots out and they send them back to us. You don't have to use the box that's right next to your house. Use the official ballot drop box that's most efficient for you, the one that you want to use. You don't have to use a particular one. Yes.
I have a question, but I could put it in my US Post box, right? And it will get to you as well. Is that correct?
Exactly right. And many people still place a stamp on their ballot coming back to us, but you no longer have to do that in Oregon. Just this year was the launch of prepaid postage on the ballot return envelopes. So you don't have to put a stamp on that. And honestly, the way the post office is processing those, you're wasting your 50 cents because they're processing all of those and charging the state for that postage. So they're charging the state for the postage and then they're charging you also. So if you put your completed ballot back in the mail, don't bother putting a stamp on it. Just seal it up, make sure you sign it with your name and send it back to us.
I have another question. So if we don't put it in the mailbox, but we go to a ballot box with it, the state doesn't have to pay for that.
Exactly right.
Oh, that's good to know too.
It is an excellent thing to know.
50 cents or 58 cents, whatever it costs.
Since it is first class mail plus, the state is paying 70 cents per ballot that's coming back to us. So it is exceedingly important for people to realize that you are not placing your 50 cents on there, but those tax dollars are coming from you in another way and paying that. So just in full fairness and full disclosure, we're going to pay for it one way or another. It's just whether or not you're going to get your own stamp and put that on there, or if we're going to pay through the back end and taxes are going to pay for that. So it's one of those things to keep in mind. And what was I? Super important thing to remember is that part of that process, part of the business reply mail process, those of you that have a business that do catalog or whatever that work with business reply mail, you know that it takes an extra day to get that mail back from your customer, in this case from the voter, because that mail is not just coming back from the voter or your customer. It stops at your local post office, and your local post office is counting each one of those things so they can create the invoice. So it's making an extra stop. Those 300 envelopes I get that day will appear on an invoice that gets then mailed to the Secretary of State's office. So really important. If you're using the mail to get your ballot back to us, don't mail back your ballot within this 7-day window before an election. It will not get to us in time. Postmarks do not count in Oregon. One of the biggest things we need to get new voters to understand is that postmarks do not count. That's why we've been pushing so hard the last few weeks for people to make a plan to vote. And part of your plan is knowing how long it takes to get your mail to someone. And what I encourage people to do is take time, call your grandma, tell grandma you're mailing her a card. Tell grandma you're mailing her a birthday card, a get well card, a happy Friday card. and tell grandma you're mailing it on Friday, and then ask grandma to tell you when it gets to her. So you will then know how long it takes for mail to get to from your house to grandma's house. That's what each voter in Oregon needs to know, is how long it takes to get a piece of mail where it's going. Not magic. It's part of the hoopla and uproar that the post office caused when the federal management team at the post office sent letters to Secretary of States across the country saying, know how long it takes for mail. And that was the gut and glory of the letter, the infamous letter that they sent to all the secretaries of state's office. In the bowels of that letter, they were telling states that have same-day registration, hey, you can't register someone to vote on election day, mail them a ballot, expect them to mail it back to you, and get it back on the same day. I mean, it's not rocket science, but that was blown way out of proportion, especially for folks in Oregon when we already know this. We know our post offices know vote by mail. So it's also evident when all voters in Oregon get a little card that's from the post office saying, hey, register to vote, or whatever they were saying is, if you're already registered, you don't need to re-register. The post office made a lot of waves here locally because they didn't ask any elections officials before they mailed out this card that is definitely not geared to Oregon. But we just want to make sure that everyone in Oregon knows how long it takes to mail. So if you're going to vote in Oregon that last week before the election, don't mail. Take it to your elections office or take it to an official drop box. Clear? So another big rumor out there is that the post office was destroying or removing, taking down all the collection boxes. Okay, partial truth, not true. So the real fact is that the post office does monitor how many pieces of mail come back through their different collection boxes. When you go to the Safeway store in Newburgh on Springbrook, you used to see 3 or 4 collection boxes. They only filled up 1 ever. There's no need to have 4 boxes when only 1 tub of mail ever gets collected out of all 4 boxes. So all that was happening a few weeks ago in Oregon, that is redundant duplicate boxes were being removed. Those that were damaged were being removed to get fixed, but it came at the wrong time. I mean, just looked bad. At the same time, when a couple of redundant boxes were being removed for the post office, Multnomah County took out one of their drop boxes at Goodwill on I think it was Martin Luther, I forget exactly the address, but that same day they took out one of their boxes. And the same day, Washington County elections took out 6 of their boxes, but just to refurb them, to repaint them, to get them back up and running. But it looked super bad that people were taking pictures of the post office taking out boxes. Multnomah County was taking out a box. Washington County was refurbing boxes. And then lo and behold, someone backs over our most popular box right outside of the courthouse. That all happened on the same day. So looked bad, not a lot of stuff going on, but the reality is vote by mail works better. It's more accessible. We think it's more secure. But we need to know the facts about how long it takes to get a piece of mail somewhere. And the other big thing was that the post office was dismantling all their sorting machines and all that. If you go to the new post office facility, the new sorting facility in North Portland, just the side of the airport, you will see the largest building that was built in Oregon at the end of 2017. Their new plant just this side of the airport was the largest building in Oregon. It is the 2nd largest postal sorting facility in the United States. There's only one postal sorting facility in the United States bigger than our new post office. They brought more equipment in than they needed. Yes, they are dismantling some, but even with the pieces that they have left, they can process more mail there today than they ever could have at the old facility downtown by the train depot. So yes, it's true that they're not fully implementing all their sorting machines that they were going to, but it's just because they don't need to in their new, more efficient space. One other thing that really chaps my hide is news outlets do not call an election. They predict the outcome of elections. So please be careful. If you're watching a news broadcast, if you're reading the newspaper, if you're listening to the radio, and if a news broadcaster is saying that X person won the election, they're just predicting the outcome. They're not actually confirming that that person won. Those of you that have been around a day or two might remember a presidential contest where Dewey won. All the news broadcasters across the country were proclaiming that Dewey defeated Truman. Everyone wakes up the next morning and says, oh yeah, by the way, that wasn't true. So if you want actual confirmed legitimate sources, please know your local elections office. Go to your local elections office for the actual results from the actual ballots. Yes.
So when do you post that information? Because it gets posted on the Yamhill County Clerk's website, right?
Yep.
So when can we, I mean, it's not going to be at 8:05 at night, right? Because
Yep.
you're counting?
We pull what we've been able to do at that point and post starting at 8:05 at night. And then as we process more ballots and as we scan more and add more to the bunch, we post about every 2 hours until we go home. And historically, we've not gone home until all ballots in the building have been scanned and worked. In a presidential election, that's usually 2 to 4 in the morning. So that's going to, it is. But in 2020, many counties, especially the larger ones, will not be doing that. Many counties in Oregon have only enough space for about half the number of board workers than they normally do because of COVID and social distancing and all that jazz. So many are only going to work until about midnight. You're going to let everyone go home and then come back the next day. And they will not be processing nearly as many as they normally would. So in Oregon, come election night at 8, 10, midnight, we're only going to see a small percentage of what we normally see on election night. Especially true with Multnomah County, Clackamas County, Marion County, our larger counties. I really want to stress that we are going to only see a small percentage of what we normally would see reported at those hourly intervals.
So what I'm hearing you say is we may not know the actual results of the election that first day. I mean, we may not even know on the next day. It could be the day after, right? It could take a few days.
Exactly right.
Testing. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Thank you.
And we won't know for sure how many ballots we have to count until probably Thursday or Friday. Because so many people will be dropping off their ballots at other counties on election day. We just know that so many people will, because it's the last day and people will procrastinate and all that jazz. We'll be sharing those ballots. When we get Washington County ballots, we'll be collecting those and then sending those to Washington County. So that's going to be Thursday, Friday, before all the counties will get their own ballots in hand. And then we can only start adding those to the total number to count until we've checked those signatures. And we know that they're from this election. Remarkably enough, a lot of people, we probably get half a dozen every year that give us ballots from last year. And obviously we can't count last year's. So that's an envelope in our possession, but we can't count it. So there's a lot of little things like that we won't know until that Friday after the election. So just that's one of the things that I remind people is just be careful when you're listening to the news. It's not over until we know how those things actually pan out.
Another question. So regarding the presidential election, though, that is determined by the Electoral College. So that's a completely different situation than our local elections and our state reps and et cetera, correct?
And it is from state to state, because some states allow an elector to vote their conscience. Some states require their electors to cast their vote for the winner of that state. So it's slightly different from state to state. But if Oregon's electoral college votes one way, it's slightly different than Washington. Washington has more electors than we do. California has more than we do. So it's a bit of a drama between November and December when the electors actually get together and actually make those choices. One of the questions that we want to jump to before I lose everyone is the wildfires, and there's a good chance that folks in McMinnville know people that were displaced. The numbers are still being counted. How many homes have been lost the last few weeks? It's somewhere near 3,000. So there's many Oregonians that don't have a home. So one of the big questions that clerks are getting is, how do people vote? What we want to remind everyone is the best thing for most of those voters is to keep their residence address the same, even though there may not be a physical home there. That is what they call home. So they will likely want to tell their local elections office their new mailing address. So if they're being put up at the local hotel from the Red Cross for the next month or two, they can give that new address for the hotel as their mailing address, but don't change their residence address. There will be someone that really wants to move to another city. So each voter in those situations should make that personal contact with their elections office to say, this is where I live now, or I want to keep my residence address, which is what most people should do, at their house that just got destroyed, and just tell their elections official where they now get mail. Post office has been very aggressive in reaching out to those folks, holding mail where necessary, forwarding mail where necessary, trying to find out where those people are going to be. But what people need to know, the ballots in Oregon are not forwardable. You can't wait for the post office to forward your ballot. It's a nuance in the law. If the post office does not have your current new mailing address, they will have to send that ballot back to the elections office. So we want those folks that are displaced to find out where they will get mail over the next 2 months and forward that mailing address, not changing their residence address, giving the new updated mailing address to their elections office. And if they can do that quickly, then those ballots will get out to those folks at that new mailing address on time with everyone else's. So far so good?
Yeah, that's great. We're coming up on 2:07, so I just want to be mindful of other people's time.
Yep.
And is that the end of your presentation?
Oh no.
Oh. There's more? Oh my goodness. Okay. Shall we try to wrap this up in the next maybe 5 minutes so people can get
Chime
on?
in with questions, answers.
Yeah.
I really would encourage folks to think about things that are bugging them, questions that they may have, things that they've always wondered and were afraid to ask. Oops, it would help if I press the right button. So there are a couple of things that we ask individual voters to do. And there's the most important thing the voters should do is get dizzy watching my presentation. Sign your outer envelope the way you sign when you're doing something important. Do not sign your outer envelope like you just bought a latte. you need to sign your outer envelope like you just bought a house. A lot of folks are getting used to a little scribble on a screen. Don't do that on your ballot. Your ballot's important. Your ballot is going to decide who is the president of the United States. Your ballot decides how school bond boards are going to function, how fire boards use their funds to fight fires. We want everyone to sign their ballot like it counts, because it does, but it only does if those signatures match. There are always questions about how to vote. And the easy answer is, well, fill in the box next to your choice. The reality of the situation is many people change their mind as they're making their way through their ballot. So we want everyone to know that that is possible, but you're always welcome to ask for a replacement ballot. But there are little tips and tricks that we want people to be aware of. Is if you make a selection, change your mind. It's best to be as clear as possible on your ballot. What is your new choice and what was the old choice? Some people try to get creative. We don't encourage creativity. we encourage you to be clear as you can. We want you to make a nice full box inside, just like you did in first grade. Stay inside the lines on those boxes. If you use the write-in option, be clear with your write-in option. Write the person's full name. Stick your folded ballot just as it was folded when you got it, back in the secrecy sleeve. You're not required to use a secrecy. So if you forgot to put your secrecy in, don't panic, don't worry. You're okay sending it back just like it is. Throw your secrecy or recycle your secrecy sleeve. Don't worry about it. It's only there if you want to use it. And then be sure to sign your envelope. So make nice, clean marks inside the lines. But one of the biggest questions we have, especially in the presidential election, is, I don't know about all these other things. Do I have to vote on all these other things? And the answer is no. You can leave everything blank if you want to. It is your choice how many contests on your ballot you vote and how many you leave blank. As a matter of fact, super interesting to share last time's presidential ballot. Lots of things for people to vote on last time. And lo and behold, this person only vote for a write-in candidate for president. And that is perfectly your choice. You're able and encouraged to make those choices that make sense to you. And that is what we call an undervote.
I have a question. Well, actually, we had a question from Emily Grace. She said, does Oregon allow electors to vote differently than the popular vote? Do you know that answer?
I believe it is different by political party. Oh. I'd have to go back and look at their most recent platforms, but it over the years has changed from the two major political parties.
Interesting.
There has been nuanced changes in state law, but I'd have to go back and look to see what the two political parties' stance is today. But one, that's an excellent question. It's worth diving into.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You betcha. Write-ins are a choice in every contest where there's a human running. We just ask that people neatly write a person's name if they don't want to vote for the people that are on the ballot. And if you write a name of a person, we'll count that as a write-in. But if you write text, if you write nastygrams, that's not a write-in. So it'll show up differently on a result. If you write blah 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 on a line, that we will count as an undervote, as a not a vote. But if you write in Barney Fife, we will count that as a write-in. Just need to know if you're looking for your particular write-in, we only itemize write-ins where there was no candidate filed for that office. So if there's a chance, here's the thing, is if there's a chance that a write-in could win, we itemize all the actual write-ins that we can decipher. If there's not a chance, we list all of those write-ins, all the Barney Fifes, all the Mickey Mouses as miscellaneous write-ins. We can show your vote to you if you really want to, but we're not going to list it on our official results. So people make all sorts of weird things. People ask all the time what we see. We see weird things. And when we say adjudication, we mean two more humans sitting in front of a screen just like this, trying to figure out what someone wrote and what someone's intent is. Oregon is a voter intent state. So we try to figure out if the voter intended one thing over another. So if you look at Ron Wyden's race, looks to me like the person selected Ron Wyden and then had a pen goober. But not everyone agrees with that assessment. Some people think that that person may have attempted to vote for the Jim Lindsay. So that is why two humans need to sit and make that determination. People do make all sorts of notes. Again, we try to remind people to be as clear as possible. That's why we encourage people to write a nice thick line through the choice they don't want, and then write some comment saying, this one, not that one. We also do not encourage the use of foul language because yes, your grandma will see it. Whatever you want grandma to see, you might want to put on your ballot. But if you don't want grandma to see it, don't write it, because I'm going to present it to the chamber next year and people are going to see what you just wrote. So an overvote, when you see overvotes listed on our results on election night, that's where we think that the person made too many choices in a contest. So you'll see on this screen, those might not be overvotes, but voter intent issues. And that is exactly what we need humans to confirm. So these three different contests, one of them, the presidential contest, most folks would think that that person truly just wanted the Pacific Green candidates, but some states count that as an overvote because there is a significant mark in too many choices. The Bernie Sanders one is a fairly clear description of voter intent where they chose one, decided against that one, and then chose another one by write-in. So we want everyone to write their signature like they mean it, like they're buying a house, not a latte. We check every signature. When you are signing your ballot envelope, you are affirming, you are swearing under oath that you are a citizen, that you are the person to whom that ballot was issued, that you are qualified, and that that is the only ballot that you voted that election. So those simple statements answer some of the questions that you see in the news and social media saying, don't attempt to do things that are against the law. And you are signing on that ballot envelope that you only voted once in this election. So please don't try to vote twice. Don't let your friends vote twice. A lot of people with middle names ask, do you sign your whole name like we printed on the ballot? We print Frederick J. Flintstone Jr. on your ballot so that that ballot is distinguished from Senior or Fred Flintstone III. So a lot of people live in households with their entire family. So we want those people to know which envelope is theirs. But we encourage people to sign your signature the way you sign it. Don't try to use every character that we print on the envelope. All those characters are there for your benefit. Don't try to match it. Use your natural signature. So far, any questions? I jumped over quite a bit, so it's
Wow.
I have a question.
yeah.
This is maybe extremely particular, but say someone was moving and their close date was October 14th, which you said is the day that ballots are being mailed out. I would need to go to the post office and change my address with them, or to the, you said it and I was like, I need to remember that, and then I couldn't focus on which one it was.
An excellent set of questions, because I glossed over one of those things. And this is a perfect example. We will be pulling our data. So in our voter registration database, we are going to pull out all the information for the ballots we're going to mail on the 14th of October.
Okay.
We're going to pull that data on the 1st of October. So
Okay.
look at your calendar and you say, oh, wait a minute. That guy's he's making my envelopes from 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So that is exactly one of the things we need people to understand. When you start seeing Facebook posts the week before the election that, hey, I got 2 ballots in the mail. Yes, that's because it takes more than an hour to produce, insert, address, and mail 70,000 ballots. So we have to do that work 2 weeks leading up to the 14th.
Okay.
So your envelope, if you're closing on the 14th or 15th, we already have your envelope heading to that address.
To the new address?
To the old one.
To the old one, yes,
So
okay.
whatever address you gave us on the 1st of October.
Okay.
So that envelope is already in the works. It's heading to that old address.
Okay.
So if you're in that window, or if your house just got burnt down,
Right.
it's all part of the same answer. Is you can come into the elections office and get your ballot. And that is what I recommend folks do that are in the transition, whether you're moving on those dates, your house just burnt down, or if you've just got a notice that you won the lottery and you're flying to New Zealand. Any one of those situations, come into our office, get your ballot, vote it, and you'll be taking care of all of those problems just with a personal visit to our building. So
we need to do that before the 1st, or just
if you do it before the 1st, you're saving everyone a lot of grief,
right,
but you don't have to. So if you are closing on the 14th or 15th, you can come in that week, because honestly, that ballot that I created 2 weeks ago is going to come back to me as undeliverable because you no longer live there.
Right.
So to answer your first question, I really want you to do both. I want you to tell the post office as soon as you know your new address, and I want you to tell our office when you know your new address. Don't worry too much about that first ballot packet. Just worry about what makes sense for you and when you know your new address.
Right.
So it might make more sense for someone moving that week to come in the following week.
Right.
So come in the 19th or 20th and say, hey, I moved to this new address. Bring with you your new voter registration card with your new address on it.
Okay.
And say, may I have a replacement ballot? I'm now at this address. Because that's one of the important things that I forgot to say, is that in Oregon, you need to be in the pool by the end of voter registration day, which is October 13th. But you can change your address all the way up through 8 p.m. on election night and still get a ballot.
So do I need to re-register because my address is different?
Every time you change your name, your party, or your address, you need to update your registration.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you can do that online, right, Brian?
In most cases, in almost all of those cases, super quick to do it online, takes you less than 5 minutes for most people. The only one of those cases where I don't want that is when you're changing your name. When you're changing your name, get married, whatever, I want that new signature with your new name that you're going to start using.
Makes sense. Wow. I don't think we have any other questions unless the few folks that are left. Okay, I guess I don't see any other questions. Oh my gosh, that was so much information, and I
Sorry.
feel so much more informed. That was really, really well done. Thank you.
Thank
Loved
you.
your presentation. Appreciate the depth of information that you have, and really all the work that you do, because it is not an easy thing. And I just want to say thank you for really doing all of that. It was, you do something really important for us, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to your team. So thanks for the presentation today. Thanks for all you do. I want to thank our sponsors, Recology and Mac Water and Light, because this is coming to you because of them. So we appreciate them as well. And we're going to post this on our website, and get in touch with Brian if you have any other further questions at their website. You can just Google Yamhill County Clerk and boom, it comes up. So thank you, Brian. Thanks to all of you who stood by us and listened in, and have a great day. And I'm going to stop recording and